Falcons are actually relieved that he's kind of not there to create more of a distraction. Look, I mean, I said it the day it happened. It was one of the stupider decisions I've ever seen by a professional NFL franchise to sign a quarterback to a $180 million contract and then draft his replacement exactly 5 weeks later. This was a terrible organizational decision by the Falcons. Now, they're going to spin this, and this is what's annoying about the Falcons and their PR staff. They're going to spin this as if this is the plan we had all along. This is the plan that when, Kirk Cousins either got hurt or didn't play well or got too old, we were going to have Penix come in. And guess what? The new plan is now we're going to keep Kirk Cousins as a backup. So if Michael Penix gets hurt, we told you so. We were right for keeping him on the roster. We were smart for keeping him here. No, this whole thing has been an abject disaster.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The Steelers' interest in Aaron Rodgers as a joke. Your boy went off about the entire situation and why it taken so long to forget him. Terry Bradshaw getting involved.
Yeah, and saying basically, what are you bringing him in for 1 year? All of this drama for 1 year at this guy, where he is now in his career is he's washed.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Aaron Rodgers steals the week. See what I did there? Yeah, it's the 41-year-old going to return for another NFL season. Plus, David Beckham going to receive the one accolade that has always eluded him. Hey, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, TGIF. Thank you guys so much for joining us each and every weekday as we're chatting the biggest stories around the business and culture of sports. We also have former NFL player Brandon Copeland joining us to talk about his work with college athletes and NIL. But first, let's dive right into the shoot-around.
Yeah, indeed, and let's start in the NFL. As we mentioned, the news that was widely expected to happen, Aaron Rodgers agreeing to a one-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he is expected to attend mandatory minicamp next week, likely Tuesday, and this would mark his 21st NFL season. Now, we don't know the terms of the deal so far, but Rodgers has said in the past he would play for $10 million a year. Renee, the 41-year-old Rodgers' first game, interestingly, with the Steelers, Week 1 against the New York Jets on Sunday Night Football on NBC. It's almost like the NFL knew this was coming.
Can't script it any better. I know Ian Rappaport, friend of the show, is reporting that $10 million contract, including some incentives, is the expectation for Rodgers' one-year deal. But do you remember back in February when Steelers safety Deshaun Elliott said, leave his bleep at the retirement home? Well, they're now teammates, and he's not at the retirement home. He actually flew out Friday morning, this morning, to finalize the contract details. But it is interesting, Baker, because for the Steelers, they've had 6 different quarterbacks since Ben Roethlisberger retired back in 2022,
Crazy.
And they're wondering, is this the guy? Is he our QB1? And I think it depends. Do you get 4-time MVP Aaron Rodgers, or do you get post-Achilles tear Rodgers that was sacked 40 times, posted his lowest yards per attempt, and went 6-12 with the Jets? Good news, I think, for the Steelers, but I think for Mike Tomlin, who's never had a losing record during his tenure, they've had 6 consecutive postseason L's and haven't been able to win in the postseason. They're thinking this is the time to maybe break that streak and continue the winning ways.
And it seems like Mike Tomlin was the reason why Rodgers ended up signing with the Steelers. And really, from process of elimination, it really was the Steelers and nobody else that would have been able to sign him anyway. I mean, the Giants ended up going with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston instead of Aaron Rodgers. And then in Minnesota, which was, I think, his preferred destination, it seemed like, because then he could have played with Kevin O'Connell, the coach there, it seems like they would have preferred J.J. McCarthy instead. So it literally was just the Steelers and nobody else at the end of the day.
Finalized their additions. DK Metcalf now gets to pair with Rodgers, but also Darius Slay and Kenneth Gainwell as well. So they've made some roster moves and feel like this is that final piece for them.
All right. Meanwhile, a legal setback setback for Michael Jordan on the racetrack as his 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports are now at risk of losing their NASCAR charter status. This after a court of appeals ruled in favor of NASCAR. This after Michael Jordan sued, accusing racing's governing body of monopolistic anti-competitive practices all through that charter system, which of course allows for a certain number of automatic spots to be in those races. Now, Michael Jordan's lawyers are saying that they're going through their legal options of what they might do. Do they appeal or figure out what happens next in this?
Well, as you mentioned, charter status is very important, exactly as you said. For anybody that doesn't recognize, those automatic spots in races and also guaranteeing them larger prize money payouts is important for any organization within racing, especially since Michael Jordan co-founded this as a way to expand the racing audience into Black communities and also just provide more opportunities for families. So I think that when you look at this, it's been going on for quite a while. He first sued them back in October. Then it was in March when NASCAR's lawyer did say that they don't have any idea really around the suing allegations. So it feels like there's a lot more that's still unfolding and a lot more that still is to come here. But for Michael Jordan, it's a shame. This was like his lifelong passion to get involved in NASCAR. He doesn't take many L's himself.
True.
Talk about a guy that doesn't lose. And yet here you have him dealing with a massive issue with NASCAR.
Yeah, he seemed like this was his favorite thing to do in his post-retirement career, and that is even over ownership of the Charlotte Hornets as well. All right, Texas Tech's win Thursday, even the Women's College World Series against Texas, sending it to that decisive Game 3 on Friday night. And Tech superstar Najee Kennedy, who transferred to the team on a reported $1 million NIL deal, she pitched a complete game, 7 innings. And this is the thing I find to be most interesting, Renee. She has thrown almost 500 pitches so far in this tournament.
What can't Nyjah do? She is a superstar in the making. And listen, the WCWS has been so exciting watching her as the only player in softball that has a 7-figure NIL deal. That $1 million deal she signed this past summer was the first time that a player in softball had more than $1 million. Others earn around 6 figures. She's changing the game directly in terms of NIL, but also this matchup, the Lone Star State battle, 2 teams fighting for their first ever national championship. To see the numbers that they've had, they've already set multiple records leading up to this championship series, but also an average of 2.1 million viewers, game 1, peaking at 2.8 million, and also that's an 11% increase from last year. So they're continuing the rise, and that game 1 was the 5th most watched college softball game ever on ESPN platforms, and they're not done yet because the championship game tonight is going to prove who is the winner.
Amen. And let's stay with women's sports as we have a big WNBA rematch in Chicago Saturday between the Sky and the Indiana Fever. Now, Caitlin Clark is not going to play due to injury and is likely to return next week. But before her injury, the game was moved into the larger United Center to accommodate the increased fan interest. But without Caitlin Clark, ticket prices have now dropped 70% according to TickPick. So what do we expect? And what has the W learned in Caitlin's absence? Let's take a look in our main event. All right, let's bring in our FLS reporter, Colin Salau, joining us from Chicago, where the game is going to be happening. And Colin, let's preview the matchup. Obviously, it's moving to the United Center where the Bulls play this weekend. So what are your expectations for this game without Caitlin Clark?
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to sell out the stadium is the first thing. They're moving it to United Center. It's the biggest capacity stadium in all of the NBA, among all of the NBA teams. So they had that opportunity last year. The Mystics sold out Capital One Arena, which is a little bit smaller. The expectation is that they would fill it. Obviously, with Caitlin Clark, there might not be that. But I think from a game standpoint, now you have maybe a more exciting game. Last time we saw one of the biggest deficits or margins of victory in WNBA history and in Fever history. Now you're going to have, 2 teams that are below 500, yes, but probably more evenly matched as the Sky have won a couple of games here. So hopefully we can see a better matchup, and I think it's going to be something that people will still want to pay attention to, especially because it's going to be aired, I believe, on CBS, which is a huge national TV game.
Yeah, now including that season opener, the Fever have won 5 of the 6 matchups against the Sky in the Angel Caitlin era since they entered the W. But still, so much excitement coming into this game that it was circled until we knew of Caitlin Clark's injury and now her absence. So ticket prices, Colin, have dropped nearly 71% for this contest this weekend. What do you think the WNBA has really learned when you look at how the league has been able to still get some solid ratings, including their last outing and other factors with Caitlin Clark out these last few games?
I think it's a full picture of the Caitlin Clark effect, right? We've seen how strong the Caitlin Clark effect is, and we've seen kind of the whiplash effect when she's out. But we also see the staying power, and that is all under the Caitlin Clark effect. Fans are still continuing to watch Fever games. I think their first game where she was out was the 10th most watched game on NBA TV. The second game she was out was the most watched game on Ion so far this year. I saw a tweet from one of those Fever Caitlin Clark fan accounts that was like, I can't believe people don't think that Caitlin Clark fans are also just Fever fans now. So I think, they've learned that that's the power of Caitlin Clark, but the holistic part of it. Now, when it comes to the ticket prices, I was going to say that, they're going to go down. You're trying to fill a massive arena that, they can't even fill Wintrust here in Chicago all the time. And that has about, I think, 11,000 fans is its capacity. But at the same time, tickets are a little bit more expensive for those games at Wintrust. And I looked this morning, the get-in price for games in United Center for tomorrow's game are like $8. And I just started texting my friends. I was like, hey, you want to watch a WNBA game for $8? Like, you should watch. I know you've never seen a WNBA game. This is your chance to watch. And they're showing their interest. So that's the flip side of it. People can try to watch these games.
Yeah,
absolutely it.
Colin Salau joining us from Chicago, all ahead of the big game this Saturday. Colin, thank you so very much for joining us.
Of course.
And we have a lot more coming up, including financial advice from former NFL player Brandon Copeland ahead. Don't go anywhere. More Front Office Sports Today right after this.
No one is going to pick Indiana. No one's going to pick Indiana to make it close, honestly. Like, you could get tremendous odds if you pick OKC in 7.
I think that taking the series over 5.5 games, the last 2 NBA Finals series ended in 5. I think this one goes 6. I think the Thunder will get the job done, but I think the Pacers are just too strong of a team and too talented of a team and too deep of a team to lose in 5 or fewer games.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks really got past that playoff dragon for them that really stood in their way. So for the New York Knicks to be the Celtics and then an outright favorite to win the Eastern Conference Finals, that's where the disappointment is.
The goalposts got moved, right? Because when you went into the Celtics series, a lot of Knicks fans said they weren't going to beat it. I'll say this is more unprecedented than the 99 run when they were the 8th seed.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Face. It's the new face. New face of what? The hell are you talking about? Like seriously. Oh, the new face of the NBA, Anthony. Yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Look, really? Guy's got 2 shots. You're face of the NBA. Slow down. He's a good player. I've always thought the whole face of the NBA thing was comical. You want him to be the face of the NBA because you don't like it that all the other faces in the NBA aren't American.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
And if they go through Cat, that means Cat at 11-1 could be Eastern Conference Finals MVP. The worst team in the WNBA is the Chicago Sky. They have no perimeter play. They're playing too many minutes. And Angel Reese doesn't have the help she needs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Front Office Sports Today. Baker and Renee here with our special guest who played 10 seasons in the NFL, including 1 season as a player rep in New England, and is now the CEO of Athletes.org, a players association for college athletes. We welcome in Brandon Copeland, doing some tremendous work in college sports and with athletes. And Brandon, I want to jump right off in this NIL era that we're in, especially since we've recently heard about a committee that's being put together that President Trump is putting together, led by some like former coach and now analyst Nick Saban. What are your thoughts on how this committee is going to impact college sports, especially in the NIL space?
Yeah, well, I mean, the beautiful thing about college sports and the tough thing about college sports right now is getting bigger bags under my eyes is the news is, changing at a rapid pace. And so they've already actually recently come out and said they're going to put a pause on that whole commission and committee because Nick Saban was saying, hey, we don't need a commission and committee to solve these issues. We just need to get in a room and solve these issues. In 1959, there was a football player named Ray Dennison who got a brain injury on the field and he passed away. And his wife and 3 kids, his wife ended up trying to sue the NCAA or try to go to the NCAA to get workers' comp, and the NCAA created this term student athlete. And student athlete was a way for Walter Byers, the then leader of the NCAA, who since then came out and denounced the term, to keep the guise of amateurism over top of college athletes so that they wouldn't have to pay those athletes to be employees and therefore wouldn't have to pay for workers' comp. And this whole attempt to keep amateurism alive has now continued to rear its ugly head in terms of what we get to see play out in college athletics day in and day out now. And while there's some folks who look at the athletes as the people who are taking advantage of the system or they're asking about money and things of that nature, and I understand as an undrafted free agent from the University of Pennsylvania who earned every single dollar that I made, college athletics, in order for there to ever be some sustainable rules, for there to ever be enforcement, you will have to negotiate with the players what those rules are. It's a multi-billion-dollar sports and entertainment ecosystem, earns more than the NBA, and the MLB may not earn more than the NBA after the NBA just recently did this new media deal, right? But those pro leagues don't have all of these random lawsuits because they negotiate the terms of free agency, of what happens when you get hurt, how much do we have to pay you, all of the different health and safety protocols and measures, they negotiate that with the Players Association. And college athletes don't have that right now. And what happens is a college athlete graduates, they get into the business world a bit, and they start to look back and say, hey, that was, y'all were making a lot of money off of me. Told me I couldn't make a cent. That was wrong. And so that's what we're seeing play out in front of us. I hope that answers your question. But I think that, frankly, there's a lot of folks who, during my time leading this, there's a lot of folks who figure out every single reason why we can't solve this problem and puzzle. And it is complicated because it is a younger group of athletes. It's not pro athletes. They're not employees. There are multiple sports. There's some generating revenue. There's some that aren't. But I don't think that this is the hardest problem in the world to solve. And I think with the right people in the room and you figure it out like you've done every other.
And Brandon, we know there's so much complexity to this because of the House settlement. We still haven't had that yet. So there's still a lot of unanswered questions out there. And I know your website, athletes.org, is trying to inform a lot of athletes about this. But what advice do you have to somebody who is looking to navigate the NIL world right now? What advice do you have to sort of get through this right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but athletes.org, we literally built it to help you do that. What we've built is not only do we want to be your players association and educate and organize and represent you at all of the negotiating tables that college athletes represents as a group of athletes, but also we've built an entire network that operates the way I like to call it. Think of Airbnb, but instead of you seeing houses, you see agents, you see doctors, you see lawyers, you see financial advisors, you see accountants, and they're rated and reviewed by other athletes. And so you are able, literally right now, there are college athletes who come to our platform and get their contracts reviewed between them and their school or them and a brand for free through our platform. And these firms, some of these firms represent Meta and the NCAA, frankly, right? And so for us, what I would say, the best piece of advice that I would say is it hurts to say this, frankly, but as a young person coming into college, you can't take what you sign for granted, and you can't take the words that people are telling you at face value. Some of them have told us that those contracts have been ripped up in front of their faces type of thing, right? When they get hurt or when they don't perform. And so for us, we just want to make sure that you understand what you're truly signing in this day and age until once we're the Players Association and actually recognized by the other side, our job will be to help standardize that contract to make sure that it's safer for everyone, including the people on the quote unquote bottom of the totem pole. And I say that with all due respect, because me in the NFL, I was on the bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah, well, last 30 seconds here, Brandon. You work with 4,000 members in your organization, as well as even teaching financial literacy at UPenn. Why now have you created this opportunity for college athletes to learn, to help them, whether it's in their personal lives or even as a professional athlete, to avoid going broke, but most importantly, be able to invest in themselves and their futures?
Yeah, one, I think I recently retired, so have a little more time on my hands. But two, I think that there's so many college athletes who have the opportunity to change their lives forever, financially, mentally, connection-wise, relationship-wise. And for me, the NFL has done that for me and my family. My kids get the benefit from my wife, my family, my community. I'm doing football camps and things of that nature. I play with a lot of really good athletes, and they could have done the same thing in college that they do for the Baltimore Ravens or the Tennessee Titans, et cetera, et cetera. They just weren't able to earn any money then. So hopefully we can get them more money in their pockets, but also the protection that they need to have a long-lasting life beyond the playing field.
Love that.
Yes, well, thank you, Brandon, for the work that you're doing as CEO with athletes.org. My fellow Big Five alum, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. We've got a quick break here on Front Office Sports Today. We'll be back after this with more.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
No one is going to pick Indiana. No one's going to pick Indiana to make it close, honestly. Like, you can't really, you could get tremendous odds if you pick OKC in 7.
I think that taking the series over 5.5 games, the last two NBA Finals series ended in 5. I think this one goes 6. I think the Thunder will get the job done, but I think the Pacers are just too strong of a team and too talented of a team and too deep of a team to lose in 5 or fewer games.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers' interest in Aaron Rodgers as a joke. Your boy went off about the entire situation and why it taken so long to forget him. Terry Bradshaw getting involved.
Yeah, and saying basically, what are you bringing him in for 1 year? All of this drama for 1 year at this guy, where he is now in his career is he's washed.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
And welcome back into Front Office Sports Today. He's Baker, I'm Renee, and we've got a special guest joining us now. It's Eric Conrad, the Executive Vice President of Rights and Strategic Partnerships over at Sport Radar. Eric, welcome to the show. So nice to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Of
I'm
course.
looking forward to spending some time with you all.
And I am looking forward to seeing and continuing to see how this partnership that you guys have at Sport Radar with Major League Baseball continues to play out. The league announced they had their best month of April in terms of viewership since 2017. How has this partnership helped really increase the fan engagement over the years?
I do think Major League Baseball has always had an advantage that we at Sport Radar wanted to capitalize on. And that's the sheer infatuation that baseball fans have with statistics, data, and stats, right? And I think, it's driven by the fact that it's largely team success is still driven largely by individual outcomes, right? The pitcher against the batter. And that just makes it easier to consume data and understand that data leads to certain outcomes. But I think we all know everyone's first fantasy league was a baseball league, right? So from the onset, we know that passion and that, as I said, infatuation was there. So going back to your question, I think we've had this long-standing relationship where we've been able to capitalize on the data that Major League Baseball makes available to us. One of the things that we're trying to focus on is predictive analytics, right? So it's not just that, we'll use, popular players these days and great players. Paul Skeens isn't just pitching to Aaron Judge, but how does Aaron Judge perform Paul Skeens, four-seam fastball, right? And the level of data that we have available, like I was saying before, via StatCast, the speed that we can deliver it at after even applying our AI algorithms to tell a story and contextualize what that moment really means, is one of those activations that just continues to drive that enthusiasm for sports, for MLB fans.
Yeah, and as you talk about the data, the technology that's helping around that growth solutions, I'm curious to know which data points you feel are best indicative and represent a good representation of the fan experience and even just the changes in the sports landscape for fans.
Sure. I mean, I think, giving credit to Major League Baseball, you just mentioned it as well, right? Their attendance is up. Ratings on their national broadcast partners is up. They've been, I think, leaders in embracing digital distribution for their live games. So now you've seen that average age of their fan dropping year after year. And we like to capitalize on that as well, right? Because digital distribution now becomes a bilateral engagement with the fan, right? So they can tell us what they're looking for, whether that's on their phone or via their smart TV. And we can deliver more customized, content in that way. So I think our focus will continue to be in collaborating with Major League Baseball, getting that data and distributing that data, right? That's the science. But how do we take that and create stories that engage the fan in a way that, again, keeps them watching longer, if that's, on MLB.tv, for example, or if they're on a sportsbook app, what are the other, bets and or, data points that will make them, engage and place more bets, right?
Thank you so much for joining us here on the show. It's been a pleasure having you. And a big thanks to Eric from Sport Radar. And now let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler.
All right, Renee. David Beckham, one of the most decorated people on the planet, is now receiving one accolade that has long eluded him. Yes, he's finally getting knighted. King Charles will officially bestow the honor, making him Sir David. This all during the King's birthday honors next week. This after almost a decade of missing out on the country's highest honorary title. But the best part, Renee, I love this. His wife, Victoria Posh Spice Beckham, will reportedly now take the name of Lady Beckham, which I love. Also, my drag name, by the way, is Lady Beckham.
Well, I'm going to knight you.
I'm kidding. Yes.
Listen, first of all, it's insane that David Mr. Bennett like Beckham is 50 years old because as I was reading the story, I was like, how and when did this happen? But also, when you talk about receiving the highest accolade with everything he's done on the soccer side, but even just giving back to the community, it makes sense. He finally gets knighted after 10 years. It's like the Titanic meme. It's been 84 years of waiting. I mean, he's English royalty and being that he's the most capped player of all time for the men's soccer team for England. He's scored at 3 different World Cups, the only English player to ever do so. Captain 59 times, the accolades, we know them. They go on and go on. But beyond even playing, him and Victoria, they were a power couple when they first got married back in 99. And he's done so much even in the MLS in terms of what he's been able to provide for Inter Miami as someone that was part of founding them for $25 million that's now worth $1.2 billion.
Yeah, basically $800 million he's accumulated over the course of his career. In addition to all the charitable work that he does, he's a UNICEF ambassador as well. But to think that he's waited 10 years for this honor, for a lot of us thought he already had it, is crazy. All right, coming up on the show next week, guys, NFL superstar receiver DeAndre Hopkins is going to join the show. He's going to chat about joining the Ravens, plus his future career in music. Ooh, you're going to love this. Well, have a good weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Tell me what I want.
Bye. Oh, that's what, wouldn't that be good if you sang that?
I wanna.